discussion will be in English, and we will take a look at the problems which need to be solved when processing data streams. Let me introduce to you our guest, Dr. Christoph Bohm, Managing Director of Bakdata and an independent IT service provider. Bakdata was founded in 2013 by computer scientists with many years of experience, academic and industry experience. Based in Berlin, the company is looking to extend its team with smart engineers from Bulgaria. Christoph is the co-founder of Bakdata as a solution and platform architect. Christoph enables the combination of traditional technologies with modern data stacks and state-of-the-art stream processing. Together with the Bakdata team, Christoph creates modern live data products for global players. Christoph, pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
My first question is actually a bit of a recap. Can you tell us what actually a data stream is?
All right, so in order to see what a data stream is, let's step another step back and consider what data is in general. So everybody of us have a rough idea of what data is, since it's all around us. Everybody is talking about it all the time. Formally speaking, data is encoded information such that computers can process it, right? It can come from any sorts of source, right? It can be items being added to shopping carts, clicks on social media. It can come from sensors in telecommunication or smart city devices. It can be logs from servers. So there are all sorts of virtual and real use cases all around us. And if we now look at this data as it emerges, so we don't consider it to be starting or ending, it emerges all the time, that information. And if we look at this data all the time, then we're looking at a data stream. So now a data stream is a constant flow of incoming information encoded as data such that computers can process it. Again, it can come from many different sources at varying speeds, in a variety of formats. It's super heterogeneous. It's a totally new way of thinking and reasoning about data.
Okay, thank you. And how do you process data streams at Bakdata?
Well, so luckily there's modern technology around to process such data, right? So we want to ingest that data, store it, process it, output it, and act upon it. In order to do so, there are several options out there in the market. At Bakdata, we chose to work with Apache Kafka, which is a well-known open source stream data processing platform, which sees a wide adoption in the industry at this moment. And luckily, again, it's open source, and there's a fruitful community around it, creating tools and libraries to get data into the platform, out of the platform, and see what's going on. So it's a really reliable choice.
Okay, and why are data streams so different?
Well, so again, back in the days, we used to record data and process it in chunks once the time was there. So consider this conference here as an example, right? I assume that most of us have at least one, maybe some of us have 2 or 3 mobile devices with them. If these mobile devices would share the information, then we have location information. If we collect this, record this, and compute aggregates afterwards, then we could tell you afterwards in which zones people were. So where did what happened, right? So this is the past. However, if we want to do this now, right, because it's a stream of information that's being encoded as data, then we could create a constantly updating report which has bar charts that are moving up and down as people are moving across the zones at this conference. So as you can see, this is totally a new way of thinking, and this revolutionizes what we can do with the data, right? So this allows us to build very modern products that we call live data products. In our case, it's the constantly updating report. And of course, you can transfer and transform this addition into other use cases in other industries, and there you see again that it's definitely a game changer.
Okay, thank you. And why do companies need help with their data stream processing?
Well, so from what we see is that companies' IT is undergoing a constant evolution, right? So it started decades ago when the systems were built in order to support the core business process, right? So as an e-commerce company, for instance, one might have involved complex enterprise resource planning software. These things were built as monoliths and served their purpose really well and have created tremendous business value. However, they were not built to create modern use cases, especially not on stream data. Right, then there was the big data wave, which we most likely are all aware of, because all of a sudden we were able to collect enormous amounts of data and process it just like regular tables, right? And companies have invested lots of resources in order to make things happen in this big data world. However, in some cases, investments might not have paid back yet as one would expect it. Still, the next step in the evolution, namely working with data streams, is already just around the corner, and there we're not even at the start anymore. Instead, we can today build more efficient and more effective solutions that we could a few years back. And that's where we come into play, because organizations build teams to create or to tackle that next step in the evolution. Sometimes they outsource the entire process, and that's where we can help, because we can help strategic stream data development, and of course we do the entire stream data engineering.
Okay, thank you. And what have you learned since the emergence of stream data processing and you've been involved in it?
Well, so first of all, it's not only me, or it's not only us at Bakdata, it's the community as a whole. And here I think there are several layers to this. So for one, these stream data platforms had to evolve, right? So at the beginning, they were merely able to ingest the data, do some simple processing, and output it again. However, these days we have complex functions to aggregate data or to connect data streams. This had to be reasoned about and developed, since many assumptions from the traditional world that we know from regular databases do not hold in the streaming world anymore. Then there are the developers. Developers also had to learn how to deal and how to handle these platforms and how to reason about data streams and how to make use cases on such modern platforms happen. However, once developers accomplished this, they were all of a sudden, well, not so all of a sudden, but then they were able to tackle traditional problems such as the duplicate detection, right? A very traditional problem that has been solved for databases years ago or decades ago. However, in the streaming world, it's different, right? So consider our conference example again. So let's say some of you have more than one, maybe 2 or 3 mobile devices. Then you would share your location information twice. And every live data product that we build up on that information would inherit the data quality issue of having duplicates in it, right? So the aggregates would simply not be correct. And that's one thing. And finally, that's another thing. And finally, there's an organizational change that's taking place, right? So these platforms were built, run, and maintained by monolithic teams and set up monolithically. However, currently, one is taking teams apart and building so-called domain data teams which build their products in order to make things happen more flexibly and independently.
Okay, thank you. And what are the challenges that may occur in data stream processing or when building live data products like Bakdata is?
Well, so as we mentioned before, when looking at data stream or live data, we always want to know the current state of some information, right? Or of some aggregation, as an example. So how many people are at the booth, right? And yeah, let's go back to that example. So we have this constantly updating report, and let's also take the past hour, right? It might sound simple for the past hour to compute these aggregates, since it's a past hour. All data should have arrived at the platform. However, that's, for some whatever reason, not always the case. So the state of how many people are at the booth must be updated, right? Even though it's about a past hour. So that's a problem we call the late arrivers in stream data processing. Second, imagine we have yet another data stream of this conference, right? We do not only have the location information, we might also have booth information, right? So who's there, what's being present, what's being presented, what giveaways are given away, etc., etc. So if we could combine these two data streams, namely information who's at which booth and who's walking around in which zone, then we could finally find who's been presented what, who's been talking to whom, etc. So that's very, very interesting. However, to do so is really difficult because we must connect to data streams, and there the different timing comes into play. So there's the time when things happened in the real world, there's the time when the data has ingested onto the platform, and then there's the time when the data is being processed. However, at this later point in time, only the time when things have happened is important. So timely is really challenging here. Timing is really challenging here. So those are implementational details. Other complexity or challenges that comes into play is when it comes to the infrastructure, right? Because Apache Kafka is a distributed data management system, which is definitely not trivial to run and maintain. It runs on a myriad of platforms, including containerized environments, and you really must be aware of what you're doing there. And last but not least, another example maybe for this conference. So consider all of a sudden people are not moving anymore, right? Because there's some super interesting talk and people are just all running into this talk, so there's no new information emerging, there's no data coming onto the platform. If this happens, then many of the resources would idle and can be scaled down, because otherwise we would of course waste energy and create costs even if not needed. So we can scale down. However, as soon as people start moving in, creating new location information, data comes into the platform, things need to be scaled up again instantly in order to have the live report that we created always up to date. So scalability is another challenge that we need to tackle here.
And following on the challenges, how do you manage to solve these challenges? And what's the fun in solving those challenges?
Well, so we've started Bakdata as what we call the one-stop shop for data engineering. So we've done all sorts of data projects, including riding the big data wave. However, since a while, and with this background, we're focusing on working with data streams. So we definitely were among the first adopters of Apache Kafka, and we can therefore build upon a long-term experience with that. And given that, we of course listen closely to our customers of where they currently are in their data journey and where they want to go. And with that information, we go back and reason about it internally in order to find the best solution, because often there are competing approaches and it's not always quite crystal clear of what's the best approach. Everybody in the organization at Bakdata is an excellent expert. As an expert in data engineering, of course, with individual strength and know-how. However, what we do have is what we call knowledge sharing by design, meaning that we have very many formats in order to exchange know-how and keep everybody up to speed when it comes to their know-how. And last but not least, again, we do some internal research to always remain a step ahead with our know-how. If you're curious about that, feel free to check out our GitHub, where you can find the essence of some of the projects we do with stream data engineering.
Yeah, a very good description of how you manage to solve these challenges. And if a professional wants to work with data streams, you kind of mentioned a bit before, but what they need to know about if they want to work with data streams.
Well, so first of all, I think you should embrace this data stream thinking. Right, so there's no beginning and no end. Data is always coming onto the platform because the emergence of information or information never stops, right? So this really needs to be understood and taken for given. And then, of course, everybody involved in such projects should have an idea of what's currently possible with such platforms, right? No matter whether it's management roles or technical roles. At Bakdata, we focus on the technical roles. And there, as a platform and solution architect, as an example, you must be able to understand the entire use case and build the big picture, the big technical picture, with Apache Kafka, in our case, at the central nervous system in the backbone. Also, you must be good at data architecture, of course, building data models that fit the use case, but also the strategic requirements. Yeah, that's the solution architect. Then another role that's involved is the platform engineer. As a platform engineer, you should be good at maintaining and running Apache Kafka, as we mentioned before, which is not trivial. And lastly, and maybe most importantly for us, the data and software engineer. And as a data and software engineer, you should be simply a really good software engineer in Java or Python, including all the bells and whistles, such as test-driven development. So you should be able to write high-quality code that's fun to read, that's well-tested, and that simply works well. All of the mentioned roles, which we don't distinguish so much at Bakdata, by the way, all of them should have lots of fun when working with data, right? Because data happens at the back of the backend, right? So it usually takes a while until this becomes visible in some shiny front end. So if you love to dig into it and reason about it, then that's what you should do.
Okay, how does Bakdata manage to gather people in teams? How's the company's recruitment process going, especially in Bulgaria?
Well, so first of all, it's difficult to gather people with these skills. Of course, we do job ads, as we do also today. We have job ads on the regular platforms out there. But we mostly draw from our network. That's also why we're here today. We constantly extend our network and we draw people from there. Once we find potential candidates, we're really happy, and then we go through a very friendly but a little bit challenging recruitment process. That is that we give out coding challenges, and there's almost unlimited time to solve the challenge, so people can go back and look at the challenge, see whether they want to do it or not. And we also have involved feedback cycles, right? So if they have questions, that's also very appreciated by the candidates on the one hand, but also by us on the other hand, because this way it gives the candidates the opportunity to learn what we do, and on the other hand, it gives us a way to judge the skills basis, but also the ability to learn if a developer or an engineer is given a problem that one might not have solved before. So it's a challenging task, but slowly and sustainably we can extend our team this way.
Thank you. And what differentiates Bakdata from other IT service providers?
Well, so that's hard to say, and I'm sure there are many other great teams out there. What I can say about our team is what I said before, right? So everybody at Bakdata is an excellent engineer. I'm happy to work with everybody. And I think what differentiates us most is that all of us have roughly the same skill level, which is at expert level, right? This is given due to that we have this knowledge sharing by design. That's also what I think will be seen most by customers, is that we are very focused on what we do. We do stream data engineering, and we're definitely among the top players in that field.
Okay, thank you. And how do you plan to integrate colleagues located abroad from Germany, from Bulgaria or any other country?
So ever since the organization is set up, we have run it very flexibly, right? So we always gave lots of room to our staff employees. And that has been the case before the pandemic, and that's also still the case, right? So people, as far as the project allows, right, can work from where they want and almost when they want, right? And given this culture, which we also communicate to clients, and given this culture, it's relatively easy to extend the hiring process, right? So it doesn't make that big of a difference for us whether we hire in Germany or somewhere abroad in Europe. And that we start here in Bulgaria to extend our activities is more or less coincidentally, because I've been here before, I've been traveling the country, I liked it. And also we have 2 employees already from Bulgaria, and this helps a lot to make that step into the market. However, at the end, what's important for us, we are not aiming to create a satellite team, right? So we want to extend our existing team, and eventually everybody should be an expert, just like we have experts in the team right now, and we should have this super overlapping skill set where we can work on highly related projects.
Okay, thank you. And what do you recommend for Bulgarian engineers interested in working with data streams? Maybe some helpful resource or a course or anything?
As I mentioned before, become an excellent engineer, right? So be motivated, don't give up on task, and learn to learn and solve the problems that you haven't been solving before, right? Because it's never going to be easy, and especially if you want to work with such a young technology like stream data processing technology, which is around for a few years now. However, it's different to regular database where SQL has been explored really well. So become a good engineer, build up a solid basis, never stop learning. And once you have this solid basis, find a good place where you can build up some experience. And of course, if it's stream data engineering in particular that you're interested in, feel free to check out our Medium, where we frequently blog about what we do. We also have a vivid open source thing at GitHub. And of course, go and come to our booth and talk to us.
Okay, thank you. And I think it's time to move to the audience and ask if any of you have any questions towards Christoph.
There's
Yeah.
one in the back.
The colleagues will provide a microphone in just a second.
I work in the e-commerce, and we also have a platform. And my question is, you said that the data stream works well with a monolith application, but what is your vision in microservice environment? How this will work in this way?
So let me repeat your question in order to see whether I got this wrong. So I mentioned monolithic applications as part of one response, right?
Yep.
And this was because these systems were built decades ago in order to enable or support this core business process. However, these systems that were built for this core business process do not support these modern use cases anymore. However, we're currently doing these modern use cases, such as building applications on stream data, and you're asking of how does this interfere with the development towards microservices, right?
Yep.
So it goes along very well, in my opinion, because what we used to call these things not microservices, but data services, right? Because eventually there is tiny applications, sometimes not super tiny. There's tiny applications running along these streams and doing their work and interchanging information. Maybe they interchange their information via the queues on Apache Kafka, where the topic's there, or via RPC calls or whatever. So it goes along very well, and indeed it's being implemented in a microservice manner in most cases. Not always, but in most cases.
Okay, thank you.
And I want to thank him for being here and giving us a walkthrough to data streams. And Christoph, thank you.
Thank you very much.